Welcome to the, welcome to the node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for April 24th, 2024. We will follow our standard approach of going through the issues tagged for the agenda, and that was issue number 135. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if there's no announcements, we'll move on to the next section, which is CPC and board meeting updates. I don't think we have either of our CPC reps or our board rep. I'm not aware of any updates unless anybody else has any things to share. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the issues tagged for the agenda. So the first one is libsource remove -- experimental policy. Is there anybody here who would want to touch base on that one? Just going to open that. I'll see who's involved. I see, Benjamin, you've been involved in some of the discussion. Anything really to mention on of interest that you have? Or Richard, I see you've been commenting as well.
Not really. Like beyond what's in the issue.
Okay, so I see see Moshi just added it as like an FYI to make sure everybody knows, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is important for people to know that features the proposal is effectively to remove it, right? So anybody has any concerns or wants to learn more about that and why, I guess, jump into the issue.
I think it would be like just beneficial for Rafael before he goes through doing all the work of changing a lot of files and running into merge conflicts that the TSC just says, yeah, it seems that like because we don't have an active maintainer for this feature and it's experimental, we are going to remove it, just so there's no like wasted work. But other than that, I think we pretty much have consensus around that because there haven't been any objections on the issue.
Okay, anybody have any concerns? Like, we've got quite a few TSC members here today. If I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Does anybody here have any concerns on removing that feature? We could like make a note that like, at least from this group, we don't have any concerns if that's the case.
Yeah, no, I did comment in the issue. My only concern was to make sure that if that is our intention, that we, as soon as possible, at least document deprecate that feature, and then remove it when we're convinced that we've pulled out all the references and all the bits that it's wormed itself into, I think it's involved in some of the loading paths and stuff. But yeah, I think it'd be a lot easier to at least deprecate it first, and that could be backported to earlier release lines, and then an actual full removal can be done when it's experimental, so it doesn't have to wait for a major. But I do feel that the complexity of removing it probably means that it would be much quicker to deprecate first, backport that to all the release lines, and then over when we're actually ready to do the removal.
Okay, I see there like it's already been deprecated as based on.
I think there was a PR. I can't remember if it made it to 22, but wherever it is, whether it did or didn't,
yeah,
it was quicker to merge that backwards then. And I think the only wasn't even a dissent, it was like a question mark, but I think there's been some work from Microsoft people for making that area. So I think they were going to go to the next security working group meeting to discuss what the future of that might be.
Okay.
As well as a feature as a whole.
Okay, so also going to be discussed in next security working. as there had been some interest from Microsoft. Okay. Okay, so I think it's probably gotten the awareness in terms of that the attention was on there. Sounds like your suggestions, Richard, have been like they're being followed or addressed in terms of like, yeah, let's doc. We've already deprecated it somewhere, right? And that should sort of flow through. Anything else we should discuss on that one, or? If not, I guess I will go back just to the announcements for a second. I know some people aren't here because they're working hard on the next major release, so that should be coming out soon. Just as a something that's good to announce. Put that on the minutes. Major 22 is in progress today. Okay, so then we'll move on to the next one, which is tools, change an active limit to 9 months. We did have some discussion last week, and there's been an issue open in the security working group to sort of look at the bigger picture. But we did leave it on the agenda because not everybody, obviously not everybody was here. And Yagas, who has his hand up, was one of the people we wanted to make sure. So I'll say, go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. So I re-edited the issue, the pull request to TSG agenda because I wanted to explain my reasoning before we start voting. So thank you for the opportunity. So my initial motivation was towards security, but after reading comments from other TSC members and collaborators, I realized that the main concern is not about my main motivation was not about security, but about something else. And Joey's comments on the pull request realized that I'm on the same page, and I wanted to publicly read them so that before we start voting. So right now we have, to summarize, we have a 12-month duration for moving a collaborator from active collaborator to emeritus status. We are not removing it, and we are just moving it to emerity and removing the permissions to push the master and the main branch and so on and so forth. But in reality, the requirement to stay as an active collaborator is extremely low right now, which is reviewing a commit that landed into main branch once every year. That's the requirement, or committing to main branch once every year. This is the requirement to stay as a collaborator, and due to this low effort, people start to whenever they realize that they haven't contributed for a long time, they look for really easy pull requests to review, and then they approve it just like the other people, and they extend that duration for more. And this gives a false advertisement for other people, realizing that, showing that Node.js is maintained by hundreds of different people. I don't know the length of it, but it doesn't matter. And Joey said that another downside of having an exceptional long list of collaborators that they are mostly inactive is that people can get the wrong idea about the support that the project can provide. You see more than 100 people in the team, and you thought this project must have a lot of maintenance going on. And when you open an issue, you would expect at least one of those more than 100 people are going to respond. But this is not the scenario in most of the cases. And another comment is that we are not removing them. We are just moving them to emerity. I think we're always being very clear that if they want to come back, they can just ask. So we are moving them to emerity, and if they ask for it, then we basically move them back to collaborator status again. So there's The definition of coming back is explicitly stated in the guidelines. So I don't see any downside of having or reducing that list more and more. I'm currently pushing for 9 months because I wanted to learn where we are as a TSC if we are aligned on this duration. But in reality, for one of the concerns raised by, for example, Michael was that if you have a life-changing event such as children, war, or so on and so forth, this 9 months or 12 months might not be sufficient. And that might be true, but then moving to Emirati and asking to come back whenever you are ready is also doable. And it's the case that we have been doing this for a really long time. So these are my reasons for pushing for 9 months. And after this call, the pull request for voting already has approvals. If there's no request for changes, I would like to proceed with a vote. And thank you for listening.
I see Benjamin has his hand up.
Yeah, so basically, I understand it's a different conversation than the one we had in the issue. In terms of security, I think there is a lot of much simpler stuff to do. I'm not entirely convinced most collaborators even need the commit bit. Like, it's very rare to use since we have the commit queue and we've had it for years now. So maybe we want to just take the commit bit away from collaborators and give it only to org admins for like extreme cases. Like maybe releasers need it, maybe the TSC needs to keep it. But if the concern is the commit bit and most people don't use the commit bit on a regular basis, maybe like I know there were discussions around this historically, but maybe it's time. Maybe like it's ready. Like the commit queue is like I don't recall landing anything with like manually uh with like without NCU for a while. The other thing is regarding the inactivity, like my biggest concern is reviewers, right? So I agree with the sentiment, both the security sentiment and the like the how the project presents itself sentiment of like we don't want to show as if we have 100 collaborators if we don't have 100 collaborators, but I am more concerned about like it being harder to ping people when we have issues. We already have so much unmaintained code and code that has like very few maintainers, and like in terms of concerns of like how the public perceives us versus being able to ping that person for that issue, I'm a lot more concerned about like reviews. So like I would be more in favor of like maybe an interim solution or like some way to more accurately present like not having 100 people super engaged, but them like still being pingable for reviews when we need that. That's it basically.
I see that Joy has her hand up.
About dropping the commit queue, I think like only relying on the commit queue. I think we should only do that when we have dedicated people actually maintaining the commit queue. Right now, it's not really like when it goes down, there's really no guarantee that there will be someone stepping up to fix it. And sometimes the malfunctions, the bot malfunctions or CI malfunctions, and there is also like something that it still doesn't do that I realize that for example when someone has like a tiny nitpick that they amend, the bot will require you to run the CI all over again. And that paired with the flaky CI, it can make landing things very, very difficult. I would say maybe we should only get to that stage when we have a proper maintained bot that someone would actually fix the bugs, and someone will actually like respond to feature request. But right now it's more like volunteering based phase, and the volunteering is like not very secure at this point.
Okay, and I see Mateo has his hand up.
So I want to say there is no I want to echo what Joey has said. Now, I have a few. Sorry, I have a question. I have a question before that. How are the permission attached to running CI? Is it attached to the role or is attached to the permission to write to the repo?
It uses the group.
The currently in Jenkins, it's the collaborators team. So there's a matrix in. Fun look for you. There's a matrix, but I mean we at the moment it's based on GitHub teams. If we can change like the teams, so you know it's not fixed, but at the moment it's all based on GitHub teams.
And I guess is it the same team that gives write access and the ability to write to run Jenkins? I think my guess.
Jenkins doesn't care, but at the moment for us it's the same team. So at the moment it's the collaborators team.
Yeah. Okay. So
today it's set up that way.
Somebody can keep the CI happy and keep running CI forever and ever, essentially.
Well, I mean, there's different things. So that link that's in the build repo. That's the security matrix. So every time we do like a security release, and someone in build has to reset and change the matrix. That's what we're currently tweaking. But you'll see in there that the matrix is basically pointing at GitHub teams. Jenkins itself doesn't care whether you have read or write access to the. It's just looking at does this GitHub team exist and who's in it. We can point. If we have another team, we can point. But the other thing is that at the moment you can request CI via a label, and at the moment I believe that that's done on a token basis. So I think there is I can't remember which user it is, but there's like an automation user that is in the collaborators team. So again, when we take away the collaborators' ability to request CI during like the security lockdowns, then the automation to request CI also breaks. But at the moment it's all based on GitHub teams, and the way it is at the moment, that GitHub team is the collaborators, and that's just what we've done. It's not inherently tied to having read or write access. It's just we've defined teams that have access in Jenkins, and that's where we've happened to point them to.
I don't think we can get the green tick if somebody's not has not the right permissions on GitHub.
Yes, that's a GitHub thing though, nothing to do with the Jenkins.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't see anybody else's hand up, so I'm just gonna add my 2 cents. Is like, I totally understand this is a balance between like let's hope that our collaborators are active versus and that the people on the list are active versus like in my mind it's a balance between that and encouraging people to contribute to the project, feeling part of the project, and especially like in those cases like I mentioned, if somebody goes off to have a child or has to look after a parent for a while or something like that. I think from my perspective, the balance is best to make them continue to feel like they're part of the project, even if that means we have a few people who last a little bit longer. And, we moved it from 18 to 12 and like, okay, 18, I could agree was a bit long. 12 now feels reasonable. So certainly like, if the goal is like, hey, let's push this to 9 and let's push it to 6. Like, I think 12 is, and at least in my opinion, is kind of like hitting the sweet spot between let's trim the project, but let's not trim it. Like we could say every month, if you haven't committed, we're going to kick you out, and you can always ask to come back, right? But like there is that friction, I think would like eventually annoy people if we went to the extreme, right? So it is a balance, and it's finding that right balance, whether 12 seems reasonable and it's long enough to avoid some of those life events. That's where I'm coming down in terms of a reasonable balance. See, Joy has her hand up.
Like personally, from my point of view, like in terms of determining what is the right time span, for the activity of a collaborator, I would think that it kind of depends on whether contributing to Node is part of your life. Like you can have a kid, and then for maybe a year, contributing to Node is not part of your life, or maybe for 6 months even. That just means during this span, like contributing node is just not part of your life anymore. And if contributing node is actually like something that you do, it's like part of your regular daily activity, I think it's very, very difficult to actually be completely like to completely like refrain yourself from actually even approving a pull request for like 12 months. I think that's very, very difficult if contributing is still part of your life. I think we should probably like view the activity, the inactivity from that angle instead of whether this will make you feel included, because I think we should be honest, it's not really about whether whether you're still included in the project. You kind of like opt out of being included if you just don't even submit a pull request for that long. Submit a pull request or review a pull request. That just means it's just not part of your life. Let's be honest.
I see Benjamin has his hand up.
Yeah, so I agree with like the general sentiment, but of like it's true that sometimes people take breaks, and during those breaks, Node is not a part of their life. But I still want to be able to ping those people for code reviews, and I feel like my chance would still be a lot higher if they're members versus if we remove them as collaborators. And like I get the representation thing and all that. My concern is still like I feel that in many areas being able to get reviews for pull requests is a lot more like limiting than getting people to write cool new features. And anything that reduces this frightens me. I've spent like maybe 50 hours in the last year just like compiling C++ and stepping with breakpoints to review stuff that didn't get like a lot of reviews in time. And if there are people that are like maybe more focused on those areas, that would help. I find myself often when I review stuff having to like get into a part of the code I have no idea, and just because I feel bad something is stalling or something is new and needs reviews. Maybe not as much recently, but like it's pretty common. So like that's my main concern, not being able to get like people to engage with for reviews.
I think you can still like you can still be in subsystem teams without being a collaborator, and we just generally do not ping the collaborators because that's the thing. I'm not sure like
No,
how.
I mean pinging specific collaborators. Like there is an area in the code. Like I really don't want to name like specific people because this is a public recorded call. But like there are certain areas of the code where we have like maybe 3, 4 people engaged in them. Okay, so like if we take something that's not controversial, let's say streams. So like we have Matteo here, Matteo knows streams. If Matteo takes a break, and maybe Robert takes a break, and I want to like review a change and I want their opinion, I feel like the chance of getting like a good answer like is a lot better if like while people are part of the project. And sometimes people like you said, they take a break and it's not as much a part of the life. And it's fair to say they're not like as active collaborators as like everyone here is. But I still want to like from the project's perspective, less from their perspective. I want to be able to ping them and like say, hey, can you please take a look at this, and that, and like review it.
I think that's still up to that person. If, for example, they do not respond to your pings, then that's kind of
Absolutely.
like why they're
I,
not going to be marked as active in the first place, because they're not going to respond to your pings. And also
yeah,
they can still be in subsystem teams, so you can still ping them.
yeah, and they can still be active and still ignore my pings. All that is fair. I'm just saying that the chance of them not responding to my peers, to my pings, intuitively goes up a lot if they're like moved to Emirates.
Yeah, like
Well,
it basically makes the separation clean, right? And then I think what you're saying is like there is some benefit to the project with, with people feeling like they're still part versus like, yeah, no, okay, I'm done, right?
Right.
I see Yagas has his hand up.
Um, so to summarize, we have, let's say, 100 collaborators. And when they became inactive, whatever that definition is, according to the current timeline or in the future, they're going to move to emerity. This means that they don't need to quit or not be a member of any of the Node.js teams. They can still be, like, for example, Matteo can still be a Node.js Streams team member. I can still be a Node.js URL team member while I'm being an emerity or not. And having them on this list, yes, it creates a psychological barrier, but also the cost of that psychological barrier means that Node.js is one of the most used piece of software in the world. And in reality, it's not hundreds of people that are maintaining or shaping or contributing to the project. It's less than that. And our homepage is advertising something that it's not. So the duration, I agree with Michael, is that the 1 month is not correct because it creates too much friction. But I don't think it's a year as well. And I don't think personally that it's the 9 months as well. Because as Joey said, let's say I also have a kid, so I can say that while being emphasizing about the situation. If you're on or if you have a parent that you need to take care of, that's your life right now, and you made the decision to put that life-changing event in the middle, and because of that you need to remove certain things from your life, such as contributing to Node.js, because family, blah blah, these kinds of things are much more important. So in that case, would it be extremely fair to the other collaborators as well as the shape of the project to see that person that doesn't put Node.js in the middle or close to middle or whatever closeness changes to that? So yeah, I don't think that's kind of fair, and I think we should show the reality of the status of the maintenance of Node.js, and having people. So let's say we reduce from 12 to 9. And then people are going to stop contributing for 8 months, and whenever they realize that they need to review to stay a Node.js collaborator, they are going to review another pull request. But this is something else that we shouldn't talk right now. That's the progress that we need to improve. The timing is the main reason that I wanted to open this pull request, because 12 months seems a lot.
Benjamin has his hand up.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, you're not first.
Yeah. No, so basically, I understand the concern of people not being active in the project for a long time and then just like coming by to do a small change like every X months. What if we keep the duration, unless it's a security risk, and change like the amount of work someone needs to do in order to stay a collaborator during like X time, X months? So let's say instead of doing one review and one pull request, it can be a higher number that's like closer to the number of pull requests or like you need to in order to become a collaborator, and then that can measure activity. Because if it's about like, sorry,
Sorry,
someone...
Michael, can you promote Rich? It's on the it's waiting.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
There we go.
sorry for the interruption,
Yep,
Benjamin.
thank you.
Yeah, so basically, if the concern isn't security and it's just like reflecting more correctly how many collaborators the project has, then I would not reduce the amount of time. I would increase the amount of work like required in order to remain a collaborator for like in the project, basically. That's it.
I see Roy has his hand up.
Yeah, I just like to mention this also makes me think another conversation we had in the past about people that are contributing different parts of the project, right? Not necessarily core, and they don't ever get to be collaborators, right? Like, so maybe the whole discussion here is that we kind of wanted to have a different role, like a core committer type of role. There is a subset of collaborators, and then we can be more strict about that role and be more flexible and expand a little more the collaborator umbrella so that we also get the benefit of keeping these folks engaged. And also, like, I think one thing we haven't done a great work, there's a lot of people who are super engaged in working groups and other kind of satellites parts of the project who never get that recognition at the same time, right? Like, so anyways, just wanted to kind of throw that into the conversation too. Like maybe what we want here is kind of like to just branch this conversation into in a different direction.
Thanks. Matteo, you have your hand up?
So I'm going to propose an experiment. Okay. We list right now, okay, we list the number of people that are that have passed the 9-month barrier, that have not come back, that did not came back, okay, to the project. And at the mark of 12, okay, we see if how many of them are what's our churn of those. Okay, and then we have some closer data, more actionable data to make this decision. Because right now it's, so the question here, and I see both Benjamin and Joey, and this same thing, it's okay for 6 months, 9 months, 1 month, whatever it is, okay? So we already, what we have the data of the current state, not the past, okay? Like this is what the question is. How many people that did not collaborate in the history of Node, that did not collaborate for 9 months, came back collaborating after 10 months or 12 months, okay? And then I think the decision will probably be more natural. Hopefully so basically my question is how many people, and it can just even be, one question can even be pinging the person that we currently know that are going to be affected if we move it to 9 months, okay? And ask them, are you thinking of coming back, okay? Because if they are thinking of coming back for whatever, then maybe we might think about it, okay? But if they all say no, then I am way less concerned in doing it. So this is my suggestion and recommendation, because right now it seems the discussion can be done for 9 months now, but we can do it for 6. Okay, I don't see any difference between doing 9 or 6. Okay, so and we should probably make it a little bit more about it. Can be 3 months from my point of view. Okay, like what Joey said resonates with me, and what Benjamin said resonates with me, both at the same time. So, and the question would be, whenever I had to slow it down, I probably didn't collaborate maybe for a month or so. Okay, talking about me. So I don't know. It's I don't know. Benjamin, I think was the
Yeah,
question.
Benjamin has his hand up.
Yeah, sorry. What if we ask people like after 6 months, but remove them after 12? So after 6 months, you get an email from the TSC or like an automation asking you if like you're still engaged and willing to step down, because that used to be a process before we automated it, and it sort of worked. And then like if they say, yeah, I'm still engaged, I'm just taking a break because like this and that, they stay in the project, but otherwise like we remove them.
I see. I guess had his hand up next. So
So I've been a TSC member for a year, and before that a year as a collaborator, and I don't explicitly remember a single person that said, can I come back? And then they actually came back. Maybe there is, but I don't remember it. And the decision to make this 9 months, 6 months, so to summarize, Matteo, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I rooted for 6 months, and then I bargained for 9, and then I compromised and said 12 months, and that's why we have 12. But I initially rooted for 6 months. So the reason that I called for a vote is that I think the worst decision is better than no decision at all. And yeah, we can look for data. I agree. We can always revert a decision. We can always make a mistake and then say that, yeah, this is not the benefit for the project and go back. But I think we need more strong and opinionated pushbacks in the TSC, and I think that we should at least have a vote on this. It might be 12 months, and I'm okay with it because it's a consensus, and I have only a single vote out of 20, 10, whatever count is. So I'm not afraid to lose or win because it's like there's no winning or losing. But I think we should take much more. We need to take more decisions, more actionable decisions, and then back that data or revert that data with more information. Because we can say, let's have an experiment right now, and due to everybody has their own jobs and on their timeline, it's highly likely that no one is going to push for it. No one is going to look for it except the person that suggests this. And I personally, I don't have the personal time to research on it. So I am calling for a vote for 9 months.
I see Antoine has his hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to react to what Yagis just said. I think if we don't have any data, well, the status quo is probably going to win, right? Because the current situation is working okay. And so if you call for a vote now without any data to back up your claim, I don't see a reason to, some folks are objecting to the PR, and I don't see a reason to override their objection without any data. Just FYI.
So I think we've spent a good amount of time on this discussion. I think lots few points
I
have
would
been
like to
discussed. Sorry, go ahead.
to add one additional thing. I don't think strengthening this improves our security. Okay, it's more hygiene and so on and so forth, but it does not improve our security posture. Okay, so I agree with all the things that being said, but it does not. Okay, there are we're doing way more risky things in those sense than this. Okay, so this is it. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to add this point because I don't know if it was mentioned before. I joined a little bit late, but for me, it's important to make it. Sorry, it just does not. Okay.
Right. So you're clarifying that, yeah, from your perspective, security, this has no benefit for security, which I think I agree at this point as well. So we have spent a good amount of time. I think we should move on. I think like Yagiz is like, hey, I want to have a vote. There's been some counter proposals, but I don't think that's changed your mind, Yagiz. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So effectively, I think that means the vote moves forward. Sounds like it's been approved by some people, so that's like at least some seconds. And I guess any last comments or points people want to make before, I guess we open up the vote and do it that way. Okay, well then let's move on to the next issue on the agenda. We do want to keep a little bit of time for private section, so I think let's try and limit it to the next 7 minutes. I'm just going to very quickly mention on the updated meeting times. I am putting together some proposals. And as we said, I think I'm going to do the limit. Like if you haven't updated your times within the last year, they're not going to be included in the generation. So look for that soon in terms of some proposals. We already talked about this one, the collaborator spotlight proposal. I'm not quite sure if I remember why that's on the agenda, possibly as an FYI. Yeah, I added this to the agenda while I added it last week. Okay, so basically I added it. Now I remember, just as an FYI, basically we've documented the process in a document in the collaborating section. And, nominations are now open. So if you think there's a collaborator that is, would be you'd like to nominate for the spotlight proposal, please do. If you have any questions, I think, myself, Matteo, Kylie are good people to reach out. And there is also that document in the repo. And then I'm looking for the Collaborator Summit. Does that still need to be on the agenda? I think we left it on, yes, because we were going to talk about alternate venues, but I don't think we have time unless there's a very quick update on that.
Yeah, I think the update is probably just we wanted to run a survey and see like if folks would be down to going to Colombia. So I could use some help, Matteo, Joey, who ran the last one. Like if you can help out, like I might be able to help out actually getting that survey out.
Okay. Next step is to run survey. See who can make it.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to take it from out of the agenda from now.
Okay, so let's do that just so that move it from the agenda. Okay. And then I think that takes us to the experimental web storage as the last thing that was on the agenda.
No need to talk about it. I put it on the board meeting agenda for asking for
Okay.
the approval. I won't be at the board meeting, but I talked with Giuseppe, and the board meeting date moved in the month. Okay. So I can't. I won't be able to be there. But I spoke with Giuseppe and Robin, and it's on the agenda. So also Toby is very familiar with the problem. So. They know, okay? So there is the question, there's a question, okay?
Yeah, so basically our next step is to wait for board feedback on can we get the SQLite license or whatever it's called approved.
I don't think we need the license, okay? Either we accept it's public domain and it's public domain. We already
That's what I
have
meant,
this.
like accept whatever it is, yeah.
Accept whatever it is. And whatever it is, we already ship it, so OpenJS is already shipping it with Chromium. So question mark. I don't know if the board meeting will make a resolution for this week, for this meeting. Might be that legal needs to do its churn and a legal committee will need to be summoned. So it'll take whatever it takes.
Okay. And the meeting is this week?
This Friday.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so at that point, I think we've covered off all the issues that were on the agenda. We'll skip the strategic initiatives for this week. And unless anybody else has something else, I'm going to end the live stream and we'll go into a short private session. Okay, I will do that. Thanks everybody who's been watching on the live stream, and we'll see you in GitHub and next time.